Rumors spread quickly in the business circles that the most charming playboy of them all, Logan Hayes, had been in a car accident and suffered a head injury. His memory had stopped 3 years in the past. When he came to see me, his voice carried both irritation and hurt. It was just one dinner with my ex-girlfriend Maddie. "Are you really going to keep making a scene about it?" he said. I steadied myself, lifting my little girl from where she sat on the floor, and answered gently, meeting his bewildered gaze. "Logan, we broke up 3 years ago. I am married now, and I have a child." That evening, after putting my daughter to sleep, I was leaning against the headboard, scrolling through my phone, when a news alert lit up the screen. At 9 p.m. on February 17th, Logan Hayes, president and CEO of Hayes Global, had been in a serious car crash in Los Angeles. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The report said he had suffered a severe head injury and had fallen into a coma. A photograph showed the twisted wreckage of a Bugatti Veyron, nearly unrecognizable after the impact. Another image showed Logan, his head soaked in blood, eyes closed, as he was lifted onto a stretcher. Even unconscious, his brows were drawn tightly together. A wave of disorientation swept over me. It had been 3 years since I last saw him. The tender and painful memories I once thought I could never erase now felt like faded illusions, distant, as if they belonged to another lifetime. I was about to set my phone down and go to sleep when a sudden pounding on my door shattered the quiet. Afraid the noise would wake my daughter, I hurried into the living room, slipped on my slippers, and peeked through the peephole. My breath caught. Logan stood there, head wrapped in bandages, already seeping with blood, his expression impatient. Maddie Reed opened the door. "I know you're in there," I asked the security guard. My mind scrambled as I unlocked the door. "A few days ago, you were in critical condition. How are you?" He stepped inside without hesitation, as if he owned the place. His gaze flickered briefly toward a pair of men's shoes on the floor, but he said nothing. "Cold in here," he muttered, tossing his coat to me. "Why are you hiding out in this nowhere town? What happened to the mansion I gave you? Why aren't you living there?" His casual tone left me momentarily speechless. 3 years earlier, the last time we spoke, had been during a vicious argument. His face had gone dark, his eyes sharp enough to cut. "Maddie, you and that man had better stay far away from me," he had warned. "If not, I can't promise he'll stay alive." Yet here he was, acting as if none of that had happened, lounging on my sofa, patting his thigh, and looking at me with that lazy, commanding lift of his chin. "Come here." The warm light fell across his face, highlighting the sharp beauty that made even his arrogance dangerously magnetic. I stepped back, frowning. "What are you doing here? We broke up, Logan." He gave a dismissive smile. "Oh, please, I know you better than that. Been crying at home lately, haven't you?" He waved me over. "All I did was take Sienna Brooks to the hospital, and you have to be so petty about it." When I didn't move, he rose, closed the distance, and caught my wrist. His hand, long-fingered and strong, slid to my stomach. "I know you've been moody because you're pregnant. If you want this baby so badly, then keep it. I've even picked out names. If it's a boy, it'll be. If it's a girl, she'll be." That was when I finally realized something was terribly wrong. The Logan in front of me was still living 3 years ago. I gripped his wrist, my voice rough. "Logan, you've lost your memory, haven't you?" He paused, then shrugged. "They say I have, but it's ridiculous. My head's a bit fuzzy, but who cares? Nothing important. You can just fill me in later." He pulled me into his arms, looking at me with such tenderness. It was as though the last 3 years had never happened. I pushed him away, my voice as steady as I could make it. "Logan, we are over." He cut me off immediately, his smile freezing into something cold. "Maddie, that's enough." You think I'm going to believe that? Logan's lips curved into a smug smile. "You've been with me for so many years. If you wanted to leave, you would have done it a long time ago. You can't walk away from me." Before I could answer, the sound of a bedroom door creaking open made me push him away. My daughter shuffled out, rubbing her eyes, clutching her favorite stuffed bunny in her tiny hands. "Mommy," she mumbled, her little brow furrowed as she glanced at Logan. "Who is this man?" The truth was, my breakup with Logan had been anything but clean. I was the foster child the Hayes family had taken in, a companion for their precious son. Though in reality, I was nothing more than someone they brought home to keep him entertained. From the very first day, everyone in that house made it clear I had to give in to Logan, take care of him, put him first. I was 3 years older, so naturally I was assigned the role of an older sister. Logan had been spoiled since birth, his temper sharp and unyielding. When I first arrived, he made it his mission to make my life miserable. He would put snakes, my greatest fear, in my bed. He'd gather friends to mock me for being the foster kid. Sometimes he would barge into my room in the middle of the night, yank me from my bed, and sneer. "Maddie, don't you dare think you're really my sister. You're nothing but the stray dog my family decided to keep." I never argued back. Deep down, I was grateful to Charles and Victoria Hayes. They had taken me out of the orphanage, and without them, I might have been sold by someone far worse. Children's tempers flare and fade quickly, and Logan's animosity eventually softened under my unwavering care. He began to protect me, making sure no one bullied me. On nights he couldn't sleep, he'd come to my room. He even started calling me sis. I thought that was how we would always be locked in that strange bond. Then when I was 19, Logan had a girlfriend. Her name was Sienna Brooks, the daughter of another powerful family, a girl who, like him, had been born with every advantage. Sienna was breathtaking, the kind of beauty who had been crowned campus queen in her freshman year. Naturally, she caught Logan's attention. Their relationship was inevitable, but both were spoiled and hot-tempered, and they fought often. During one of those fights, in an effort to provoke her, Logan kissed me in front of her. That single moment changed everything between us. He never explained it, and I never asked, but from then on, we both knew things would never return to the way they had been. He stayed with Sienna for 3 years before they broke up after yet another argument. Sienna left the country in tears, and one drunken night Logan stumbled into my bed. I still remember the chaos of that night. His breath was heavy with alcohol, his voice a mix of demand and something almost like pleading. "Don't push me away." His hands pinned mine above my head, his movements forceful, yet his tone cracked with vulnerability. My voice trembled as I asked Logan, "Do you even know who I am?" He didn't answer, only kissed me harder. Later, as I was drifting into exhaustion, I heard him murmur against my ear, "You're Maddie." From that night on, we were together without ever officially confessing, without any declarations of love. I still played the role of the older sister, but now he was closer, more intimate. We walked beaches at sunset, leaned into each other during late-night movies, fell asleep in each other's arms during storms. For a time, I was truly happy. I didn't know when I fell in love with him, only that I had. So when Sienna came back, I endured it. When he missed my birthday to have dinner with her, I said nothing. I loved him and knew he was still immature, so I was willing to give him the chance to make mistakes and come back from them. Then I discovered I was pregnant. I sent him the ultrasound picture. He didn't call back right away, and when he did, his voice over the phone was distorted, edged with annoyance. "Maddie, I'm not ready to have a child. I'm not done having fun. Don't keep it." 30 minutes later, a friend of mine, Lauren Bennett, who was interning at the hospital, sent me a photo. Logan was there with Sienna gently supporting her as though she was the most precious thing in the world. My friend had sent a voice message along with the photo, her tone edged with disbelief. Logan Hayes came to the maternity ward with another woman. "She's pregnant. Who is she?" In that instant, the truth struck me with a clarity so sharp it hurt. It wasn't that Logan didn't want children. He simply didn't want mine. From the beginning to the end, he had never let go of Sienna Brooks. She was the first woman to make him taste the sweetness of love, the one who would always be that untouchable, glowing moon in his heart. When she returned, I, the stand-in, was expected to step aside. My child became nothing more than an inconvenience he could discard without a second thought. After that, I asked him to break up, but he wouldn't accept it. He demanded explanations over and over until I was forced to ask Dylan Carter, an old friend from school, to stage a fake romance with me. I will never forget the way Logan looked at me that day, his eyes burning into me as if they could reduce me to ash. "Maddie, you and that man had better stay away from me. Otherwise, I can't guarantee he'll live." His final words dripped with contempt. "Remember, I, Logan Hayes, don't want you anymore. It's not you leaving me." After that day, I never saw him again. It wasn't long before I heard he had gone abroad and gotten engaged to Sienna. Their families were perfectly matched, and both the Hayeses and the Brookses were pleased. The engagement party was so lavish it made front-page news. Now, years later, he had suffered an accident, and his memory had frozen 3 years in the past. The living room was cloaked in a heavy stillness, the distant sound of traffic muffled by the night. I held my daughter and spoke softly, my words landing like stones in the quiet. Logan, we've been apart for 3 years. I'm married now with a child. It took him a long moment to react. His mouth opened slightly, his expression wavering between confusion and a forced smile, as if he wasn't sure whether he was trying to convince me or himself. That's impossible. Maddie, how could you marry someone else? Didn't you love me? His gaze shifted to the little girl in my arms, and he tried to shape a smile. Is she the baby we once talked about having? I stepped back. Logan, are you out of your mind? She isn't yours. The light in his eyes dimmed, swallowed by shadows. Not mine. Then whose child is she? His voice rose as he seized my wrist. Maddie, whose child is this? Before I could answer, the front door swung open, and Grayson Miller walked in, taking our daughter from my arms. The night had grown colder, his black suit damp from the mist outside, but his presence filled the room with an unshakable strength. We have company. Why didn't you tell me? He handed me the dessert I loved, ignoring Logan's darkening expression. They were almost sold out. I barely got one. Logan's eyes swept over him from head to toe, his fists curling tight. Maddie, how long have you been with him, Logan? We've been apart for years. We both have our own lives now. You're about to marry Sienna, and I have my own family. The only reason you've forgotten that is because of the accident. In truth, we stopped having anything to do with each other a long time ago. No longer connected. Logan stepped back, a mocking smile twisting his lips. No longer connected. We lived together for over 10 years, and now you say that to me. I lowered my eyes, my voice calm. You've grown up, Logan. We both should live our own lives. Grayson stepped closer, his left arm cradling Chloe, while his right hand claimed mine. His touch a quiet declaration of possession. The three of us stood together, separated from Logan by an invisible wall, though the space between us was small. After a long silence, Logan laughed low and bitter. Fine, Maddie. You're tougher than I thought. When Logan left, Grayson didn't speak, but I could feel the irritation radiating from him. Even when Chloe asked him for a goodbye kiss, he brushed it against her forehead too quickly. His whole demeanor seemed to say, I'm upset, explain yourself. With a resigned sigh, I wrapped my arms around him. I didn't know he would come. He just showed up tonight, said he'd lost his memory, so I told him everything. There won't be a next time, all right? Grayson Miller yanked his tie loose, tossed it to the floor, and sank onto the sofa. His long legs crossed his silence, heavier than any accusation. After a while, when he'd wrestled his temper back into place, he finally spoke. The moment I heard he'd lost his memory, I knew something was off. I rushed back to the country, but I still couldn't stop him from showing up at our door. He looked like he'd been awake for days, the man who was usually so good at veiled remarks, resorting to a rare curse. Damn it, I should have made sure that accident killed him. I couldn't help a small laugh despite myself. Grayson, usually unshakable, as if the sky could fall and he wouldn't blink, became almost boyishly petty when it came to Logan Hayes. The day Logan left for overseas, Grayson had half joked about throwing a farewell party just to celebrate him being gone forever. And now, barely after our marriage license was dry, Logan was back stirring chaos. No wonder he was furious. It took a long time, and every reassurance I could muster, every promise that Logan was firmly in my past, before Grayson would even half let go of his sulk. Even then, that night after Chloe had fallen asleep, he made sure I didn't forget his displeasure. The next morning, I dragged myself out of bed feeling drained and sore, silently cursing him for acting like a child when he was nearly 30. Wasn't it supposed to be downhill for men after 25? My thoughts were cut short by the ring of my phone. The number was unfamiliar. Expecting a delivery call, I answered only to hear a voice I knew instantly. Even over the line, Sienna Brooks's tone was steeped in disdain, that familiar mix of condescension and contempt she always reserved for me, as if I were something dirty she couldn't believe existed. The irony was that she and Logan had broken up long before he and I were together. If anyone had stepped into an existing relationship, it had been her, not me. Yet she carried herself like the righteous one. I had fought hard to build a new life free from both of them. I had no interest in being dragged back into their mess, but fate wasn't done testing me. On Victoria Hayes's birthday, when I arrived with a gift, I found Sienna sitting beside her, eyes locked on me, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. I pretended not to notice. "If you have company, I'll just be going," I said lightly, turning to leave. Her voice snapped like a whip. "Stop right there, Maddie. Logan came to see you, didn't he?" I turned back slowly. "What do you want to say, Sienna?" She tilted her chin, looking down her nose at me. "I can't believe how shameless you are. I've known you've liked Logan for years. When we broke up, you took the chance to crawl into his bed, forcing him to be with you. But now we're engaged and you're already married. Can you stop embarrassing yourself?" My laugh was short and sharp. Sienna always had a gift for flipping the truth to suit her. In her world, Logan loved only her, and if there had ever been any entanglement between him and me, it must have been because I lured him. My voice went cold. "If you're suffering from delusions, Sienna, my heart's not the cure. Maybe you should see a doctor." Her eyes narrowed to slits. "Maddie, we're engaged and getting married soon. So tell me, if you didn't seduce him, why did he come back for you, Charles?" And Victoria Hayes stood nearby, saying nothing. Their silence as good as agreement with her words. Victoria hesitated before speaking, her tone dripping with false civility. "Maddie, Logan is still young. He doesn't understand things. But you're the older sister. You should guide him, not let your personal feelings disrupt the family's harmony. Don't you think so?" I let out a low, bitter laugh. "Young, he's 26. I have a husband, a child, and you think I still care about him. I wasn't the one who caused his accident, and I wasn't the one who made him lose his memory. If you can't control him, don't come here to push me around because you think I'm the easiest target." Charles's voice was ice. "Watch your mouth. You're nothing but an ungrateful brat." Charles Hayes's eyes were hard and unblinking as he glared at me. I refused to give him the satisfaction of a reaction and simply turned toward the door, ready to leave. But Sienna Brooks's voice cut through the room, sharp and accusing. "Do you even know why Logan had that accident, Maddie?" She was clutching her fist so tightly her knuckles were white. "He heard you got married. He was upset, so he drank and went street racing. This is all your fault." I didn't turn back, only answered evenly. "That has nothing to do with me." I didn't force him to do anything. I reached for the door, but froze when I realized Logan was standing just outside the gift he'd meant for his mother, still in his hand. His fingers clenched so tightly they'd gone pale. He stared at me for a long moment before a strange, humorless laugh slipped from his lips. "You're right, Maddie. This has nothing to do with you." He walked in, face cold, and turned to Sienna. "Who told you you could be here?" Her eyes shimmered, but she forced the tears not to fall. "Logan, we're engaged. Yet you're here chasing after her. What is that supposed to mean?" He was silent for a while, before answering flatly. "Call it off." The room fell into a suffocating silence. A few seconds later, Sienna's voice cracked. "Are you insane?" "Is this because of Maddie?" Logan's expression didn't change. "It's because I don't want to marry you. I told you before, stay away from her." "Then what do you want me to do?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "My fiancé flew halfway across the world to chase another woman. Tell me, Logan, what am I supposed to do?" He ignored her completely, tossing the gift onto the table near his mother. "Don't get involved in my business. Maddie's right. This has nothing to do with her." He let out a self-mocking laugh. "I brought this on myself. I deserve it." Victoria Hayes's lips shook with rage as she jabbed a finger toward me. "I should have let you die in that orphanage. We took you in out of kindness, and this is how you repay us, by destroying our family. If you hadn't taken advantage of him when he was young and naive, he wouldn't be like this." I closed my eyes for a moment. I had always been grateful to them for taking me in. But from the moment I arrived, every time Logan had a problem, the blame fell squarely on me. They carried themselves like refined members of high society, never laying a hand on me, but they knew far crueler ways to break someone. When I was a child, they would make me kneel in front of guests, and when asked why, they would smile politely and say, "We took this child in out of pity, but she has too many improper thoughts." There was never a scenario in which Logan was at fault. If blame was to be assigned, it was mine to bear. The weight of it pressed down on me until I was too tired to even argue. I was about to step outside when the doorbell rang. The housekeeper opened it, and there stood Grayson Miller in a sharp suit, his presence instantly commanding the room. My eyes widened. He walked in, placed a gift on the table, and spoke in a tone that was polite but edged with steel. "Today is your birthday, ma'am. As family, I couldn't possibly not stop by." His gaze swept the room, his lips curved in a faint smile, but the air around him was frigid. "Am I interrupting something?" Charles was on his feet immediately. "Not at all, you've arrived at the perfect time. Please have a seat." The Miller name carried more weight than the Hayeses, and in front of Grayson, they dared not posture as they usually did. Charles's demeanor shifted in an instant, his tone overly warm. "What an honor to have you here. You even brought a gift. About that land in the suburbs, since you've helped us so much, perhaps we can finalize the deal soon." Grayson's smile was cool as he loosened his tie, his eyes cutting like glass. "I don't think that property is a good match for your family. When you learn to respect my wife, we can talk business." Charles's face went pale. Victoria scrambled to her feet, forcing a strained smile. Now, there's no need to speak like that. Maddie is family to us, and small disagreements are normal. Surely you wouldn't let such a thing affect relations between our families." But Grayson didn't even glance at the seat the housekeeper had prepared. He stood there tall, every inch exuding authority. "Maddie is my wife. If you don't respect her, you don't respect me. I don't see the Hayes family welcoming us here, so we'll be on our way." I could see the Hayes family wasn't making any effort to welcome us, so... Grayson's voice was steady but final when he said we'd be leaving. He took my hand and guided me toward the door, leaving Charles and Victoria looking flustered, unsure how to respond. Then Logan's voice rose behind us, low and heavy with something simmering beneath the surface. "Grayson Miller, do you really think she loves you? Let me tell you the truth. She loved me for 10 years. You're nothing but a replacement." Grayson tilted his head, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "If telling yourself that helps you sleep at night, be my guest." In the car, I kept glancing at him, worried he might be angry after hearing Logan's words, but his face stayed unreadable. "Why didn't you tell me they treated you like that?" I lowered my gaze. I didn't know Sienna would be there. "I just meant to drop off the gift and leave." His hands tightened on the steering wheel, his expression darkening. "That arrogant old man took my goodwill and then dared to humiliate my wife." He gave a short, sharp breath through his nose. "No one in that family is worth a damn. You're my wife now, but Logan still feels the need to stir up trouble, like he can't stand to see you happy." I sighed because every word he said was true. Logan had always been selfish, wrapped up in his own feelings, never caring about anyone else's situation. When I loved him, I could excuse everything. But now, with the love gone, all that was left was disgust. Sensing my silence, Grayson reached over and took my hand. His palm was rough from years of training, but it was warm grounding. Our wedding bands clicked softly against each other. "From now on," he said in that steady, deep voice of his, "you tell me when something happens. You don't suffer in silence." To me, what had happened today was nothing compared to what I'd endured before. I was used to swallowing my grievances. But hearing him say that made something inside me crack, and I felt the sting in my eyes. After a pause, I squeezed his hand and whispered, "All right." For a while, Logan seemed to keep his distance. He hadn't gone back to the States yet, but his engagement to Sienna stalled. I'd almost forgotten the whole mess when my phone rang one late night. His voice came through thick with alcohol, that same overbearing tone I knew too well. "Maddie, I'm drunk. Come get me. I've got a headache." Back when we were together, he'd go out drinking with his friends, never caring where I was or what I was doing. Rain or shine, night or day, one call and I would come running. I remembered one night after Sienna had just returned to the country, Logan called like that. When I got to the bar under the dim lights, I saw him with her sitting on his lap, his mouth on hers. It took him a long time to notice me, and when he pulled away, there was a thin thread of saliva between them. Sienna's smirk was sharp, and the people around them were laughing at me. Logan didn't look the least bit guilty, just asked why I'd taken so long to get there. I shut my eyes now, pushing those memories back where they belonged. With distance, I'd realized I hadn't loved Logan as much as I once believed. From childhood, I'd been taught to put him first, to meet his every need, to make him the center of my world. It became instinct to indulge him. It wasn't until I met Grayson that I learned something else entirely, that life should be lived for myself first. "Mommy," as that Grandma Chloe's sleepy voice pulled me back. I set my book down, brushing her hair gently. No sweetheart, just someone who doesn't matter. Into the phone, I told Logan, call Sienna. I'm not free. His voice was tinged with wounded pride. You don't like me anymore, Maddie. You used to always come when I asked. I'm not calling Sienna. I kept my tone calm. That's not my problem. Don't call me again. I hung up, and when his number lit up my screen again, I blocked it. But only 2 minutes later, my phone rang once more. Thinking he'd found another number, I almost sent it to voicemail until I saw it was Grayson. He rarely drank, but tonight, his voice was a little unsteady, softened by a light, almost boyish laugh. Babe, he said, warm and slow. I'm drunk. Come get me. Surprised, I asked where his driver was. He said the man had gone home early and he wasn't feeling great. With no choice, I kissed Chloe's forehead, got dressed, and followed his location. But when I opened the door at the pin he'd sent, it wasn't Grayson waiting inside. It was Logan. Grayson Miller and Logan Hayes sat at opposite ends of the long table, both well over 6 feet tall, their postures radiating quiet dominance. The air between them was so thick that no one else at the table dared to move or even breathe too loudly. I understood instantly what was happening, and though part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity, another part simmered with frustration. I walked over to Grayson, tugging at his arm. How old are you exactly? My usually composed and rational husband was acting like a spoiled child after a few drinks. He rose from his seat, leaning slightly into me, and turned to Logan with a smile that carried the smugness of someone who had won a battle. Sorry, Mr. Hayes. My wife is here to take me home, so I'll be leaving. Logan's expression darkened immediately, his eyes locking on me with a heat that made the room feel colder. Maddie, his voice trembled, as if the words were hard to believe you came to pick him up. But not me, I steadied Grayson, but he refused to let the moment go, deliberately twisting the knife. I'm her husband. Who exactly are you? Logan said nothing, his gaze growing colder, his jaw tightening. Just before I reached the door, his voice stopped me. Maybe it was my imagination, but there was a trace of pleading beneath the low timbre. Maddie, do you really choose him? I didn't turn around. I simply answered softly. I chose him a long time ago. Finally, I got Grayson into the car and shut the door with more force than necessary. What on earth was that? He's not right in the head, and you stoop down to his level. Is stupidity contagious? Grayson, still leaning back in his seat, looked far too pleased with himself. I ran into him at dinner tonight, he muttered, and he insisted you'd come for him. He gave a short huff, still brimming with disdain. Idiot. Doesn't know his place. I'd noticed it before whenever Logan was involved. Grayson's calm, unshakable demeanor slipped. Even a man as self-assured and elegant as him would resort to sharp, almost crude remarks. Maddie, he said suddenly, closing his eyes and threading his fingers through mine, do you love me? When I didn't answer right away, he opened them again, a flicker of worry in his gaze that he didn't quite manage to hide. Since we married, Grayson had rarely mentioned my past with Logan. I had thought he didn't care. Now I knew he cared more than I realized. Otherwise, he wouldn't have played this childish competition game. He was a man who kept his emotions carefully in check, yet tonight there was a sliver of vulnerability. I leaned over, buckled his seatbelt, and pressed a gentle kiss to his lips. I love you, I murmured. Only you. A few days later, Logan reached out to me. I'm leaving for Los Angeles soon, he said. Let's meet one last time. After this, I won't bother you anymore. I hesitated, then agreed. Logan wasn't the type to let go until he got closure, so perhaps it was better to end this cleanly. We met at a restaurant we used to frequent. He surprised me by pulling out my chair with polite formality. I remember you liked this place, he said. I nodded. I used to until I learned you brought Sienna here behind my back. His smile faltered and he murmured an apology. I waved it off. It doesn't matter anymore. He sat down, and after a moment he asked the first question. Maddie, is Chloe my daughter? I looked up and saw that flicker of desperate hope in his eyes, though his knuckles were bone white from how tightly he clenched his hands. I took a sip of coffee before answering firmly, no. I have no interest in that old pregnant runaway cliché. Chloe is Grayson's daughter. What about the baby from back then? His face was draining of color. I ended the pregnancy, I said quietly. The day I learned Sienna was pregnant, I went to the clinic. Don't tell me you're about to claim her baby isn't yours. He stayed silent and we both knew the truth. It was his. His cheating had never been in doubt. There had never been a misunderstanding between us. Is he good to you? Logan asked suddenly, the question coming from nowhere. I smiled faintly. He's very good to me. Better than you can imagine. At first I only approached him to stage a breakup with you, but as I got to know him, I realized he was genuinely exceptional. Thoughtful in ways you never were. Chloe wasn't planned, but Grayson was happy from the moment he knew. So we kept her. In fact, we've been married for quite some time now, even if we didn't announce it for the first 2 years. I had never wanted a wedding ceremony, which was why ours had been delayed for so long. Logan Hayes didn't show much on his face, but I could see the storm raging in his eyes. Maddie, whatever he can give you, I can give you too. Come back to me. I stared at him for a moment before asking, and what about Sienna Brooks? You left me for her, and now you want to leave her to come back to me. Logan shut his eyes as though trying to hold something back. I haven't cared about her for a long time, he said quietly. It was just my pride she left me first, and I couldn't accept it. After we broke up, I regretted everything. But by then you were already with Grayson. Maddie, I'll treat you well from now on. We've known each other for more than 10 years. No one understands you better than I do, and no one understands me better than you. His jaw tightened, his voice low and insistent. We're the ones who should be together. Grayson is just someone who took advantage of the timing. I shook my head. It's too late, Logan. I gave you so many chances. Back when Sienna came back, all you had to do was turn around once, and I never would have left you. But no one can stand still forever. I've moved on. You should too. Don't be stubborn. He gave a strange smile. Is that so? Then what if I stay stubborn? My head spun suddenly, the room tilting, and I found myself staring at him through a haze as everything went blurry. Just before I lost consciousness, I heard his voice close to my ear. Maddie, you left me once. I won't let you leave me again. When I came to, I was in a moving car, the trees and cliffs whipping by through the window. Panic rushed through me as I recognized the winding mountain road. Logan, where are you taking me? His eyes stayed fixed on the road. To the mountain villa I gave you. Didn't you say you loved the view up there? A cold wave of dread washed over me. That had been 3 years ago, back when we were still in love. We'd spend weekends there, wrapped in each other's arms by the window, watching the city lights glitter far below. But now I knew he meant to keep me there trapped. You're insane, I hissed. I'm married. What exactly do you want? He didn't answer my question. Instead, he asked his own calm and deliberate. You like children, right? We could have a few. How many do you want? I stared out the window, the blur of trees and asphalt filling me with despair. I knew Logan too well. What he felt for me now wasn't love. It was refusal to lose. All his life, he'd been the one who excelled, who never failed to claim what he wanted. He couldn't accept that I had been his for so long, and then walked away to be with someone else. It was the same pride that had kept him from letting go of Sienna years ago. Now, with his memory loss, that stubbornness had curdled into something dangerous, and I was the unlucky one caught in its grip. Then through the rearview mirror, I spotted something, a familiar black Maybach tailing us along the narrow mountain road. My heart leapt. Grayson. Logan saw it too, and his lips curled into a cold smile as he pressed harder on the accelerator. The engine roared, the McLaren surging forward like a predator. Fear clawed up my throat. Logan, he's here. Let me out. The Maybach closed the distance, pulling alongside us. Grayson's jaw was set. His eyes locked on mine for a fleeting moment before he swerved, forcing Logan toward the shoulder. Logan fought back, pushing the McLaren to its limits, the tires screaming against the asphalt as he tried to force Grayson off the cliff. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I pounded my fists against the window, screaming his name. Grayson. In a sudden, decisive move, Grayson slammed the accelerator, the Maybach fishtailing, before it cut sharply in front of the McLaren, blocking its path completely. Logan had no choice but to slam on the brakes, the tires screeching in protest. I flung the door open before the car had fully stopped, stumbling onto the pavement and into Grayson's arms. How did you know I was here? I gasped, trembling so hard I could barely stand. His voice was cold as he looked past me toward Logan, still sitting in the car. I put a tracker on your phone. Relief flooded me, and I clung to him, unable to let go. I had never imagined that losing his memory would turn Logan into something this unhinged. Logan didn't step out of the McLaren. He just sat there staring at Grayson with an expression I couldn't read. A few seconds later, the engine roared to life again. Logan Hayes' car came hurtling toward us, his face twisted with madness. Eyes wild as he shouted, "If you won't be with me, then we'll die together." In that split second before impact, Grayson Miller wrapped his arms around me and threw us both to the side with every ounce of his strength. We tumbled over and over the ground, spinning until we stopped at the edge of the cliff, so close that the cold wind from the abyss seemed to reach up to claim us. Through the haze of dust, Logan's McLaren swerved at the last second, missing us by inches before sailing over the edge. The sound of metal tearing apart was deafening, followed by the violent explosion that lit up the night sky in a furious blaze. Days later, I heard the news Logan had somehow survived a miracle, wrapped in shattered steel and the cushioning of airbags. 3 broken ribs, 1 leg crushed beyond recognition, a severe blow to the head, and 1 rib that had stopped less than 1/4 of an inch from piercing his heart. He lay in the ICU for days before opening his eyes again, but his reckless act had already sealed his fate. It wasn't just attempted murder, it was the attempted murder of Grayson as well, and the Miller family was not the type to forgive or forget. If it had been only me he'd tried to kill, perhaps the Hayes family could have found a way to protect him. But dragging Grayson into it meant the police were at the Hayes estate before the flames from the wreck had even cooled. Once Logan recovered enough to speak, he would be facing years behind bars. The day he woke up, the police called me saying he refused to say a word to them unless I came. I didn't want to see him, but there was no avoiding it. It had been only a few days yet. He looked like a shadow of himself. The vibrant young man I had once known was gone, replaced by someone pale and broken, swathed in bandages, his eyes stripped of everything but a hollow darkness. For the man who had tried to kill me, all I felt now was revulsion and a deep, heavy resentment. Standing at his bedside, my voice was ice. "Do you have anything to say?" He stayed silent for a long time, and then his eyes moved slowly toward me. "Maddie," he rasped, "I remember everything now." I gave a short, cold laugh. "Do you regret it?" His voice was hoarse, strained with pain. "I regret breaking up with you." A tear slipped from the corner of his eye. "Maddie, if I hadn't been so stubborn when Sienna came back, would things be different now?" I stared at him, and for a moment I was back in those years when he was younger, headstrong, proud, impossible to reason with. When he was hurt, he would come to me with eyes brimming, collapsing into my arms without a word, his small frame shaking as silent tears soaked my shirt. We had once been that close. How had it come to this? And then after all these years, he called me sis, again his voice breaking. I was wrong. Can you forgive me? I looked at the man I had loved for more than a decade, forgiven over and over again for more than a decade, and I said nothing. After a long silence with his eyes growing dim, I picked up my bag and turned toward the door. You've said what you needed to say. Now focus on getting your sentence reduced. 4 months later, the verdict came down. Attempted murder. The only thing saving him from a harsher sentence was that last-second turn of the wheel. His lawyer argued that he had changed his mind at the final moment, that he never truly intended to kill us. The court reduced the charge and he was given 5 years in prison. Logan's mother fainted right there in the courtroom. His father, once so imposing, now looked like a man aged 20 years overnight, his hair streaked with white. Sienna fled the country in tears, her reputation in shreds, and with the Hayes family's partnerships collapsing, the co-family she belonged to was headed for ruin. Half a year later, on Logan's birthday, his mother called me. Her voice still carried a trace of bitterness, but there was no mistaking the plea beneath it. "Logan wants to see you. Could you come just this once?" Grayson sat beside me, flipping through the paper, but I could feel him listening closely. My answer was soft but firm. "No, Auntie." I hung up. Logan and I had shared years of our lives, the good and the bad, the joy and the pain, moments of peace and moments of sheer chaos. But now there was nothing left worth seeing. The next day a letter arrived, sent from the prison. "Maddie, it's been a long time. In here, I've had a lot of time to think. I've written you so many letters, but every time I read them back, they felt ridiculous, and I knew you wouldn't want to read them. So I tore them all up. Lately, he wrote, I've been dreaming about the past. I dreamed about my birthday when I broke my father's favorite vase. Even though you were just as scared as I was, you stepped forward, took the blame, and endured the punishment for me. I dreamed about our first kiss, too. It wasn't just to make Sienna jealous, like I let everyone believe it was something I had been planning for a long time, something I finally had the courage to do. Only later did I realize I had been in love with you for years long before I ever admitted it to myself. The truth is, I never loved Sienna the way I thought I did. I only saw her beauty, her poise, how she could make me look good in front of others. It was like owning the finest watch or the most expensive car. Only the best would be worthy of me, or so I believed. I left you and stayed with her, convincing myself it was love. But I knew deep down that it wasn't. Do you know when I realized I loved you? It was the first time I came home after we broke up. The house was empty, cold, and dark. And for the first time in my life, I felt fear. I called your name out loud because you were supposed to be there. You had always been there. No matter when I called, you came. But that time you didn't. It was the first time I truly felt I had lost something that mattered. Yet I still didn't bow my head. For more than 10 years, you had always given in to me. You never stayed mad at me no matter what I did. I believed you would never leave me, that you would come back soon enough. So I got angry, and I left with Sienna for another country, thinking I could make you feel the same fear I had felt, so you would return. I never imagined you wouldn't. I told myself it was impossible for you to leave me for good. We had been together too long, our lives too entwined. You couldn't escape me. That lie held until I learned you had a new boyfriend, that you had a child with him, and that you had married. That was when my world collapsed. I realized then that I was the one who couldn't leave. I didn't care about pride or dignity anymore. I just wanted you back. I don't know how much I drank that night. I only remember the wind and rain hitting my face as I drove too fast. So fast I couldn't tell if the wetness on my cheeks was rain or tears. People say that before you die, your life flashes before your eyes. I saw mine, and it was all you. The first time you came to my house, your shy expression. The time I put a snake in your locker, and you were terrified, tears in your eyes, yet you didn't get angry. Our first kiss, your surprised look. The moment you saw me with Sienna, the hurt in your eyes. I thought I had forgotten all of it, but in that moment it was crystal clear, as if hundreds of versions of you were standing before me, woven into every part of my life. Then I woke up. Every time I woke, I felt you should be there. I would reach for you and find only emptiness. They told me I had lost my memory. I didn't know, couldn't remember. All I knew was that I needed to see you. I boarded a plane that very night. I wanted to tell you I loved you, that we could be together, that I would never hurt you again. But when I saw you, every word stuck in my throat. You looked so happy. You told me you were married, that you had a child. You told me the child wasn't mine, but his. In that moment, I thought it was absurd. After all these years, after our lives had been so intertwined, you were telling me you could walk away completely into someone else's world. I was furious, but there was nothing I could do. For a fleeting second, I even thought that if you died, you could never leave me again, and we would never be apart. But when the moment came, I realized I couldn't do it. Before I lost consciousness, I had one final thought. If I had to choose between seeing you dead or alive with someone else, I'd rather you live, even if it meant I could only watch from afar. Maddie, you asked if I regret it. You don't know I have regretted it so deeply that it has eaten through me in countless sleepless nights. I will work hard, serve my sentence, and hope for an early release. If he ever treats you badly, wait for me. And if he treats you well, then forget me. Forget the bastard who only ever caused you pain. Be happy, even if that happiness isn't with me. Logan. When I finished reading the letter, my eyes burned unexpectedly, the feeling too complicated to name. Grayson was outside holding Chloe, calling for me. She wants to go to Disney. Since I have this weekend free, how about tomorrow? Seeing I hadn't answered, he came closer, noticed the letter in my hand, and asked, "What's that?" I smiled faintly, tore it into pieces, and dropped them into the trash. Nothing, just garbage. So tomorrow we're going to Disney. Okay, love that comes too late is worth less than trash. The wounds Logan left in me can never be healed by a few desperate words. He was right about only one thing: I will live happily. And that happiness will never ever have anything to do with him again.